do in the spring is to test my soil. I just got this from a local store, but you can do it professionally. It tells me my pH, my nitrogen, my phosphorus, and my potassium levels, so I know what my garden needs or what it's lacking or maybe too high in. This is a fertilizer that dahlias do well with. You can use it. I usually don't until later on in the season, just because I put mine in pots in the house under grow lights, so I know that soil has a little bit of fertilizer in it and I don't want to over fertilize. I almost always put this on. This is for snails and slugs. I just put it around the outskirts of my mounds that I've made, or around the edges of, I don't put it directly on the plants. I go on the outskirts just to keep them away. I do this. I don't see these snails or slugs in my garden, but I don't want to start either, because it would be a feast for them. These are some of the other things that I've used. Insecticide soap that I've had to use before in the past for different bugs, and you can read what they are good for. I also have Bug Be Gone. It works. It doesn't harm the dahlias. I have used 7 Dust before. That's something that takes care of Japanese beetles. I seem to have problems with that occasionally, so I'll use that, or even one of these others. And the last thing that I use on my garden, I don't put a whole lot on, is urea. This is nitrogen. I like to have long stems because I put bouquets together, and this will make the stems grow longer and the plants grow taller. When planting dahlias in your garden, you need to consider a few things. The very first thing is sun. They like at least 8 hours of sun a day. The soil temperature needs to be at least 50 degrees, and any danger of frost needs to have passed. So the first thing I do is put the stake in the ground, because you don't want to put the stake down through the tuber. So I put the stake in the ground, and then I instantly label it. This one's going to be Diva, and I use a permanent marker that says extreme. It says fade resistant, but they do fade. So this is the first thing that I do. I'll put it on the stake. I use a little wire to put it on there. I put it on so I know what it is. Later on, after the tuber has gotten big enough, I'll put some of this tape. I'll use that same marker, and I'll put this tape down below, which I'll show you later. And then that way I know if this fades, then I still have this as a choice. Alright, the next thing you need to do is dig a hole somewhere between 4 to 6 inches, and sometimes I use a little ruler to indicate that. This is about 6 inches. This plant's already started to grow, or this tuber has gotten some eyes there. So I'm going to lay it in the ground, and I'm going to put this piece that's growing where the eyes are, you can see lots of eyes in through there, as close to this as possible, because eventually we're going to tie that up to keep it from tilting one way or the other. So I'm going to put it down in the ground, and basically, now sometimes they say that you can't, if you didn't have this long thing and you just had some eyes shooting out there, and for whatever reason it ends up like this on its side, not necessarily if this wasn't there, but if it just ended up on its side. For instance, with this one, if this was on its side, it would still come up. It's not just because you put it on its side, or maybe you don't even see eyes and you just laid in there the way you think it's going to come up. It'll still come up. It'll find its way up through the soil towards the sun. So we're going to put this in there, and then you want your soil to be as soft as you can. This has been sitting out here for a little bit, but you're just going to pour it in there, around there like that. Make it nice and soft, so when it comes up through, it doesn't have to struggle to make it up. And then you just, sometimes I will mound it at the top. And that's good. Here, I'll show you that in a second here. Like, I can leave that up there a little bit since it's already been growing. Sometimes I will mound this, like I said, because then that keeps the water, it'll be around it and go down to the roots instead of maybe rotting that tuber there. So sometimes I do that. I make a little mound around it, and then that supports it even more. right there. Now you don't want to water this as soon as you plant it. Like most plants you want to water, but not these. Usually the rain, because you plant it when it's, you know, in Ohio it's when, you know, during the spring, when we're going to get a lot of rain anyways, and so you don't want to water this right away. Now if you don't get water or you don't get rain for several days, then I might sprinkle it with a hose, but I won't soak it. So just leave that the way it is. When you do start watering it, however, is when it does start to come up. And this, I think I would still leave it for a little bit. You could even cover that up, and then when it starts to peak up, then you know it's already growing, and you can then give it some water. You mainly want to water the ground level. Some people water, you know, up above sprinklers, but you can see here, I don't know if you can see back there, my sprinkler system. I have soaker hose all through here, and you'll see that here a little bit better when I show you my rows. But that's how I do it. I just lay them on the ground and let it soak the ground instead of going over the flowers. I find that when the flowers are in bloom and it rains, it sometimes makes the flowers go bad sooner than I would like them to. So I always try, if I know it's going to rain, I'll come out and pick all those flowers that are in bloom, because then they'll last longer in a vase. But the rain does sometimes make the petals of the blooms go bad quicker. So I do it that way. I just try and do the soaker hose on the ground. These are 2 dahlias that I have put in pots. Most of the time when you put dahlias in pots, they don't get maybe as big as they would if they were in the ground. I don't always stake the dahlias that I put in pots, and if I did, I would just put them on the outside, so you have something to tie them to. But like I said, they don't typically get as tall and as big as if you were to put them in the ground. So once the plants get at least 3 leaf sets, you've got 1 here, 2 here, 3, then you're going to pinch 3 or 4, you're going to pinch off this center piece right here. What that allows to have happen is then they'll start to get in through here. All these laterals will come out and give you a bushier plant with a lot more blooms. Another thing you need to consider, because of snails and slugs, you need to pinch off anything that's going to be laying on the ground. You need to pinch off those leaf sets that are clear down there, that are kind of touching the soil or whatever it is. So see, you have nice clear view there, and things aren't going to be crawling on there from your soil. Here's another one. I have down here these leaf sets. Again, I need to pinch those off because they're touching the soil. So I need to pinch that off, and I would probably even pinch this off just because it's close enough. So I'm going to pinch those so nothing, animals, little critters can't crawl up there. Now I'm going to count up. This one's not quite ready to be pinched off at the top, but here we've got the 1 leaf set, 2, and 3. So because this is pretty big and I haven't cut it off before now, I'm going to go on up to this top one here, up right here, and I'm going to pinch here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to pinch. It's 3 or 4, it doesn't really matter, somewhere in that bracket. And that's what's going to cause, I can get that out of there. That is what's going to cause these other leaf sets to, and it's terrible that you have to pinch off that much, but that's what you're going to do. What that creates, and this one's kind of already started to do it, is these laterals that are coming out here to the side. More branches, more flowers. Now, this one, I don't know if you can see this, but it kind of left, some of them can leave. If I would have pinched down here, it would have left a really big hole there. So what I do is, to keep that from filling up with water, I'll put a piece of foil in there and kind of cover up that hole, so water, like today it's supposed to rain, I wouldn't want to do that and then let it sit out here and fill up with water, because then that's going to rot your tuber. So then you just kind of wrap it around and secure that. After a while, and that's healed and it's shrunk up a little bit, you can take that foil off. But that's something that you want to do to keep water from filling up in there. And here again, you can see laterals coming right out of there. these so you'll have a bigger plant. As I said, these are my soaker hose. I have a variety of different kinds, and I water from the ground around. I try to get it around instead of directly on, and not directly on the plants, because I said that kind of ruins the blooms. This is exactly like I said, this is blackberry ice, but I tie this around the base of the plant so I can identify it, because I said that popsicle stick that I write on doesn't always stay because of the sun. It bleaches. But when you do this, make sure that you have it loose enough. As you can see, this is very loose because this base will grow. I've also, it's kind of windy today and we're supposed to get a storm, so I have made sure this is like the only one that's this tall. It's kind of lanky. I tie it with this twine just to keep it, and that's, you want to do that like every 12 inches. To get really heavy at the end, you'll wish you did it along the way. So that's that. And then you can see here, I pinched this one off a long time ago. I've already got laterals here with leaves. Here's another one, and then you've got a couple more up through here. This is where I pinched it off, and that's causing the laterals to go out, so I'll have a bigger plant. Also down here, I'm not sure you can see this, here is a leaf that I need to get rid of because I don't want the slugs. And then I don't want that to get wet and then lay on the ground. So in between two plants, I have about 2 feet. Now I do 2 rows together, and then I put like a walk space between it. So I have 2 feet between here, and then when I do this diagonal, that's about 2.5 feet. And then between, like these 2 rows are together, and then you can see back in through here, this is like a walkway, and I usually try to make that about 5 feet. So we got 5 feet here, 2 feet, 2.5, and then another walkway that direction. So that's kind of how I do my rows. Some people think that this is pretty close to have 2 feet, but mine get so big because I do that pinching that they kind of help support each other, especially if I get a big wind. So that just kind of helps support, and I can tie things together from one pole to the other to keep everything in place and healthy.